using balance and foreshadowing in your drums. So let's take a listen to this beat, and then I want to talk about using these techniques, balance and foreshadowing. We'll see them here. Let's take a listen, and I'll break it down. Alright, so there it is. That sample is from Splice, but first let's talk about balance. And so the drums are, to start, the main pattern is actually pretty simple. Pretty simple kick, snare, hi-hat in there. So really simple. Let's take a listen to the sample. So it's a real cool sample to me. Some interesting things going on there, and there's plenty going on that I didn't need to do a lot with the drums, so I didn't want to overload it. And so, but kind of on this part here where I switch it up, let's take a listen to this part. It gets a little simpler, and then that with the drums that already were kind of simple, it felt a little like it needed more. And so what I did, instead of going crazy with the drum pattern and doing something different, I kept the same drum pattern, but that's when I started to introduce this fill down here, which is just a couple toms pretty much and some percussions. And that kind of helps balance out the simplicity of the sample. It makes for a nice little transition as well, and so it kind of fills it in, so it keeps that balance. So whereas originally probably like here and here, these two together kind of work well. They kind of balance each other out. When the sample gets a little like thinned out and there's less going on, you can kind of fill in the total audio with more drums with the drum fill. It's a perfect time to put in a drum fill. So that's balance. Let's talk a little bit about foreshadowing. So I do have this drum fill that we just went through, this guy right here. What I did earlier is I added in a couple toms here. So if we do play this, it's subtle, but you do hear it. If we go through again, I'll just play this low drum, these toms, and it's a little bit subtle, kind of like toms before the tom fill, almost kind of letting you know, hey, this is coming. You're gonna see some toms, so it's a little like preemptive, letting you know, a little foreshadowing. Here's what's coming. You see that a lot in like storytelling in movies. Here's something that's kind of telling you like, hey, this is coming, and so that's what you see here. So that's foreshadowing. All right, so the last part I want to talk about combining the two. So if we look at the drum pattern without the toms, it's pretty sparse, right? You got a kick here, then a snare, a couple kicks, snare, and a couple hi-hats. And then for the tom part, we saw, if you think about these as steps or 16th notes, pretty much at this part on, you see there's a note at every step. Well, pretty much this part on. So there's this note, this low tom, there's a space, and then from here on, there's a bunch of notes in this section here. So a bunch of notes is kind of like condensed in this part right here. There's a note every step at that part. So which is a little bit different from how the beat is going. This kind of general pattern and a little bit of like really chilled and laid back drums kind of sets the tone. And this kind of is a little bit different as that variety. So it stands out in that sense. So that kind of theme of like, we're gonna keep a pretty like chill beat. It is pretty low key chill beat and keep the drum pattern simple. But then we have these compact notes at different times to kind of add variety and fill in to add the balance. That kind of compactness is almost being foreshadowed in the next part here. In this case with these hi-hats that are a little bit digitized electronic hats. Let's hear them. Well, you can see right, they're just like 4 notes compacted. These just 4 steps, like right back to back to back to back, which is very different from the typical drum pattern, which is, you know, kick, snare, kick, snare, right? And so this kind of this fill here kind of almost kind of says like, almost foreshadows like there's also another kind of compact notes section coming in. In this case, it's these hats. Now, doing like a bunch of drums or a bunch of tom fills at this point probably would have made everything overcrowded and didn't fit in with the vibe of the beat. So that's why I chose just to do like a simple hi-hat and also kind of pan it off a little bit. So it still balances out with the rest. It still adds that kind of dense compactness that as a theme that we're trying to carry out on top of like a very like chill, relaxed beat, and doesn't overcrowd it, doesn't change the vibe necessarily, but adds a little something to it. So that's combining the two. That's foreshadowing and balance kind of put together. So to round it out, you know, a lot of times when I see producers making drum beats, they just think like, oh, what can I do here and here and here, and not really have like any rhyme or reason into why you're adding certain drum elements and how you're doing them. So this is just two ways to think about it: balance, foreshadowing, and I guess a third way would be combine the two. So if you have like, you know, maybe a simple beat, maybe you actually do want to add something at various times to add a little more interest into it. So, or think about how you might want to throw in a couple toms earlier, letting people know like there's going to be a lot more toms later on. It doesn't have to be toms. It could be different percussion elements. It could be kicks, hi-hats, snares. But it gives you a little bit of logic and reason in terms of determining like what you do and why you do it. Peace.